Hi everyone and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for our virtual info session. My name is Sarah Birch and I'm an admissions and recruitment specialist for the Brown School Office of Admissions. And with me today I have 4 panelists, 3 current students and an alum from the Brown School who are all going to share their stories about why they chose to come to the Brown School. For those of you who are watching live with us, we encourage you to please submit questions as we go along, and we'll try to get to those at the end. And then any other questions that might be specific, you can always reach out to our office and we'll share some contact info with you at the end of the session. So for this panel today, we know that our applicants have a lot of options when they're choosing graduate programs, and you're considering programs from all over the country. We really believe, though, that the Brown School has a great curriculum, awesome fieldwork opportunities, and our faculty are all the things that make our programs in public health and social work some of the strongest in the country. And so we'll delve a little bit into that today. So first I would like to go ahead and have my panelists introduce themselves. Just say your name, where you're from, your background, degree program, academic interests, and then when you are graduating or when you did graduate.
Hi, I'm Dina Brosi. I'm the graduate, so I graduated from the MPH program 2016. I'm originally from the West Coast in California. My undergraduate degree was in biology, and my focus when I came to WashU were the biostats and EPI program, but currently I work in health policy and research at the Center for Public Health System Science at WashU.
Hi, I'm Bridget Welch. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a second-year MSW student in the mental health concentration, so I'm interested in being a licensed counselor. Previously, I worked in higher education, like a student affairs type of background, and I want to sort of merge those two, so do counseling in a college university setting.
Hi, my name is Allie Kim, and I'm from Nashville. Before coming to the Brown School, I taught, and I came here to study school social work.
Hi, my name is Clive Mswanza. I'm from Zimbabwe. I graduated from medical school and now I'm doing MPH. I'm a first-year MPH specializing in epidemiology and biostatistics, and I'm looking forward to doing medical residency after graduating.
Excellent. Well, thank you all so much for being here. It means a lot that you took the time out of your day to share your experiences and stories in the Brown School. So before we get into kind of when you actually chose the Brown School as your graduate program, I want to know what you were looking for when you were applying to graduate schools, and specifically what you wanted from a program. So Dina, if you want to go ahead and start.
So to be completely honest, the way that I applied to, or found out about WashU was I looked at the rankings for public health programs that had MPHs, and WashU was really highly ranked for their public health program. And then, so once I, found that out, went on their website, I was looking for a biostats EPI program that I could go into because I was really interested in statistics. And I was also looking for a program that would give me a little bit of flexibility, because in my bio undergrad, I moved around a lot. So I knew I would maybe change my mind at some point. So I was also looking for a program that would give me that flexibility if I so wanted to choose. So those were some of the things that I was looking at.
Bridget, do you want to share what
Sure.
you were looking for in program?
So I knew I was looking in the St. Louis area, and I looked at most all schools that had programs, which there's some great programs in this area. And I really wanted a school that had a social justice focus, and that really put that into action, where I felt like I could see it happening and it wasn't just talk. And I came to Admitted Students Weekend, and I talked with people, students, faculty, and I felt like those words were coming to life, and it felt like the right place for me. I got some of my questions answered that made me feel like this is my place, this place cares about these issues and is taking action and is willing to admit where it wants to grow and where things could be better, and just all of that made me feel like it was transparent, upfront, things were happening. So I was glad to come here and make this choice.
I also looked at the rankings for MSW programs, and I was looking to kind of come to this area as well. And I was really excited about the flexibility that the Brown School offers for curriculum. especially when it comes to like specializing in your MSW. So I was really excited about that. And I really loved the fact that you could pick your own practicum at the Brown School. And that was something that I really prioritized when choosing what MSW programs to apply to.
I also looked at the rankings, and I just told myself that I wanted to apply into the top 10 schools. But from there, the other thing I also looked at was the medical school, what ranking it had, and WashU Medical School is on top, since I wanted to do residency. And the other thing that made me come to WashU was their EPI Biostatistic specialization, because some of the schools, they just have either epidemiology or biostatistics. And I really saw like an opportunity to be able to combine the two and have the statistical skills that I would need, like in terms of research. And most importantly, it was the research, like the collaborative nature of research, being able to do research at the Brown School and also having some collaborators from the medical school to be able to combine those two skills. That was really like what made me like choose Brown School.
Awesome. Thank you all. And so I know a lot of you kind of touched on this too, and talked about what it was that kind of made you get to the Brown School. Did any of you have like an aha moment and made you like really glad that you came to the Brown School?
My aha moment didn't come for probably another year or two after, and it was the faculty, having a really responsive faculty to your questions, to any concerns that you have, because like I told you, I originally went into the biostats and epi specialization, but then halfway through I realized that wasn't what I wanted to do, and I wanted to switch to the policy and administration one. And really having a faculty member that was on my side to help me through all of that, because everyone was telling me, oh, it might be too late, we don't know if you can do it. Having that faculty member on my side really, really helped. And so later realizing that having that faculty that really cares about you is really important. And it's not something that you look at when you're looking at rankings or when you're looking at like some of the research topics that they look into, but you should make sure that the faculty and administration is going to be responsive to you, and they're going to make sure that you get what you want from the school.
That's great.
Yeah, I think kind of leading off of that, like, I don't know that I would have known to ask this, but just how much support I have, like faculty, staff, fellow students. So I talk with prospective students as a student ambassador, and as I start to list the resources, I just realize how much I have. But there are probably 12 people I could rattle off who are academic advisors, career services, faculty, just all of these people surrounding me, field education, that are designated to me in-house professionals to support me through my education. And I don't know, I get to hear students talk about other schools, and not every school has all those resources, and it just makes me feel really grateful. And those are some of the aha moments of just how much support and care is surrounding me as a student.
That's great. And I think kind of what you both have touched on is that there are some things that you don't really know what to look for when you're looking for graduate programs. So are there some other things that you would encourage applicants or those who are kind of weighing their options right now? What are some things that you found at the Brown School that you're really glad that you found here that you maybe didn't know to look for when you were making that decision? Let's start with you, Allie, if there's anything you have.
Yeah, I think something that really stood out to me at the Brown School is the community, so faculty, but also just fellow students. So I moved to St. Louis, I didn't know one person, so I was really nervous, but I think it was really awesome to just come. And there's actually a whole orientation process where you get to meet a lot of your classmates, and you really get to know the city, and you get to know just everything about your colleagues, which is really nice. And I feel that maybe I'm sure that other schools have that too, but the Brown School just feels so strongly focused on community. It just was a really welcoming thing when coming to a new city.
I think what I found most interesting when I came here was how small the classes are,
For sure.
especially when it comes to research. Like I actually managed to get like a research fellowship before I came, and the communication started even before I came here, before the summer when we were talking about admitted students. And I was wondering because the other schools, going to other schools would have meant like after starting the classes I would then go and start talking to the faculty, but before I came here I already had that opportunity to do what I wanted, like global health and nutrition. And also after starting with my mentor, she's available like most of the time, and she was always asking me, she has always been asking me, what do you want, like in my case, like, you know, collaborating with other physicians and everything like down at the medical school campus. But when I actually came in, as much as I knew that I wanted to do residency and everything, I wasn't sure what sort of research I was interested in and who was going to help me. And the research team has been helpful in making me realize what I want to do in terms of my career goals, where I want to be. It has taken some time, but yeah, it is. They have made me like, you know, realize what I'm capable of doing. So I really appreciate it, because in other schools, they tend to have more students, and you know the opportunities, even if you have it, you don't have that much that contact with the faculty. You will be so many, like even when you're doing the research. And I really, I'm glad I'm actually having like an opportunity of a lifetime that, at the Brown School.
That's great, thank you. So a couple things that I heard from both of you that I want to touch on. First, kind of going back to what you said, Clive, about having that contact with some folks in the Brown School and getting those resources that maybe you wouldn't have known to look for. So can maybe Dina and Bridget talk a little bit about other resources that you have found to be particularly helpful at the Brown School, whether that's career services or stats lab, communications lab, particular faculty and staff?
Well, I'm going to be a little bit biased here. I was a tutor at the stats lab, but from all of the people that I helped and assisted with, I all got really good reviews of everybody there. It's really a team, and I really enjoyed working on it because I felt like I got to help other people, other students that were struggling with their projects, and I got to learn about what other people at the Brown School are doing. With the MPH, you're kind of siloed sometimes from the MSW, and so you really got to learn like what it is that they're working on. And some of the MSW students are doing some really cool stuff, and you need, you know, a little bit of help in some biostats because they might not know a lot about it. And the stats lab, like, they are there for you anytime that you need. You just need to like schedule an appointment, and then you can come in for a half an hour or an hour. And there were times that I would even be like, I don't know if I can answer your question right now. I'll go back home, like look through my stats book and really come back to you with like a good answer. And everybody did that. That was like, you know, par for the course. So I'm really biased for that, but it is a great resource and a lot of people use it. We were booked up most days of the week, especially around finals, but it's a resource that everybody uses. So I really like that one.
I want to talk about the library. So I did not anticipate that I would need this, but the reference librarian, Lori, is amazing. So a lot of the like support staff will come to your classes and your foundation level classes, especially your first semester. And she came to our class and she like did the whole like, how does a bill become a law for my policy class? And I like knew it, but I also didn't know it. So it was really wonderful. And she's just a very approachable human and will walk through things and not make you feel dumb about like any questions you might have. My undergrad is actually a studio art background. So I was like, I feel out of my wheelhouse. And she just kind of helped it like become manageable for me. I had never written a policy brief or letter to the editor, and I did all those things, and I'm a lot more comfortable with it right now. So she taught me life skills of how to research, how to write, how to cite laws, how to sift through laws that are in legalese that I don't know how to understand. They'll do workshops, they do like individual meetings. They're amazing, all of the staff. So that we actually have a library in-house at the Brown School, so it's one specific library for us, but then there's also like 7 other ones on campus. So yeah.
Great. Anything that you two want to add?
I know that the communications lab here is really awesome. So you can go and see Peter Kukin, and he'll give you a structural outline for kind of like a paper that you're trying to navigate. And I think he's most helpful when you're working in group projects too, especially when you have multiple different voices for a long paper. It's really helpful to kind of like have someone read through it and talk how to make it like a cohesive voice and how to make your paper even stronger. He'll even work with you on presentations. And so you can kind of like book him in advance and go in with your group members, which is really great. And I think it's a resource that people are really grateful to have.
Great.
For me, I think another great resource that we have is the Office of Field Education, like especially for MPH students, now that we will be doing our practicum in the summer. It's like there are no limits as to what you can choose. They're always available. If you like, even looking at my colleagues, whatever it is that they need to do, because everyone, when they almost all the students that I talk to, we have different goals, like leaving the Brown School, and as diverse as they are, there are always organizations that they are willing to bring on board so that they can cater for everyone. So I really have found that to be really interesting. And in my case, like I'm saying, like during the summer, I'll be actually working. I'll be working at the med school campus, collaborating with some of the doctors, like on the clinical or on the research that they are doing. That aligns with what I intend to do when I'm done. So that's a great resource that we actually have here, that the opportunities are limitless. It's all about what you want to do, and they sit down and they talk to you and they figure out a way how you can actually accomplish your goals.
That's great. And that actually touches on, we had some questions submitted before we started the panel today, and so what someone did ask, what role the field study component played in your decision. So I think this is a perfect kind of segue to ask that question, and what was that process like for you in finding your first field practicum? So first, if someone wants to speak to, what role that played in making your decision to come to the Brown School?
Yeah, so the Brown School is unique in that they let you choose your own practicum opportunity, and even though that may sound stressful, it's actually just a really wonderful thing that you can do for yourself and really like focus on what you want to do. So the Office of Field Education actually puts on a practicum fair the first semester. So usually if you're not advanced standing, you're going to start your foundation practicum for MSW in your second semester. So in September, they already have like a fair where you can go and talk to some agencies that have practicum opportunities. So that's actually where I found my first practicum. I was really excited to do my practicum at a St. Louis public school, elementary school in downtown St. Louis. And it was really great to just kind of meet the social worker and talk like what it would look like to work with her and what my responsibilities would be. And I know that like a lot of different people were able to interview with different places and ultimately choose to complete their practicum where they wanted to. So that was something that's really unique about the Brown School. And even though that extra freedom may sound like more work, they like guide you through that process so nicely. And like my advisor is probably like my favorite person at the Brown School because she's really great. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe I didn't read the like fine print coming in about this. I'm totally not an instructions reader as a human, being my art creative self. But I like knew that practica would happen, but did not really like know a lot of the details. To me, I was very much like, classes, I'll be in school, what's the next step when I started. So went to practicum fair, connected with my field advisor. There's like a portal where you search for practicum. It's really easy, I think. So maybe I'll ask Sarah, but I think there's about like 300 social work sites and maybe another 200 public health, something like that.
A little over 100 for public health, yeah.
So, I mean, tons. And a lot of that is like St. Louis or state of Missouri, but some students also go like out of state or internationally for practicum. And I don't know, that was amazing to me how much choice we had. I went to the fair and interviewed with people, talked with people. I got my first choice for my first one, which was case management in a law firm. So I worked directly with clients. My first day, it was like, here are your clients, they're yours. I had a lot of support there, but I love that I had that direct practice experience. My second practicum is all this second year along, and I am a counselor. I have my own caseload. I see clients in individual counseling, which is what I want to do. I have direct practice experience, which is incredible. It was also my first choice. So I've had very positive experiences, which I would credit to the structure around me, the advisors that are helping me through that process.
One really quick add is that I actually had the opportunity to go back to a school that I taught at and do my internship in New York, and that's like for some of my practicum experience, and it was just amazing how flexible the Brown School was, and I was able to like make a real impact on a community that was already important to me, and I feel like that was just an amazing thing that the Brown School was able to do. It was really cool.
Yeah, and I hear that a lot. You know, if you let your field advisor know what you're really passionate about and what is going to be most impactful, you feel the most, where you can make the most impact, they're really willing to work with you and try to help you find what's going to be the best fit for you.
Yeah,
so
which is just great.
it's awesome.
Can I like add a random thing?
Yeah, of
Sorry.
course.
Okay, so as like a how to decide process, I like coming in was like, I know I want to be a counselor. So in my head, I was like, I should do practica that look exactly like what I want to do. So I was like, I want to look for a practicum that's college counseling. But then I like walked it backwards. So I met with someone from career services actually, who was like, what are you missing? And I had worked with college students before, and she's like, you shouldn't do that because your resume has that. And so like walking back, I was like, well, I want to learn about sexual assault awareness prevention. And she's like, what do you know about the law and legal world? And I was like, I don't know. And she's like, there you go. Do something with like case management where you work directly with clients, but you're learning about the laws around this. So that's why I wound up at a law firm, and that was my first choice and got it. And I like really appreciated that, like, where are the holes in your skills? And I would say I would recommend that to any practicum student while they're searching. Don't go for like what's easy, what you have experience with. Go with something like, do I want to do this, trying it out, the holes in the skills in your resume.
That's great. Yeah, and I would echo too that the Brown School's curriculum, both MSW and MPH, is really dedicated to helping all of our students have a nice foundation of experience. Mm-hmm. So filling in those gaps, maybe you're a little bit more micro-focused and want to do direct practice work, but we also want to make sure that you have a good understanding of like macro level impact on a policy. So like on a policy level, so getting those experiences and exposure to that too is definitely something that's feasible within the curriculum and within your practicum experiences. I want to go to now, Allie kind of talked about this a little earlier, but about the community here. So the Brown School community and what you've kind of found either that you've really loved about it, or what's surprising, or just about the student culture itself. So Dina, if you want to start with that.
Definitely Brown School was different than what I was used to. Coming from an undergraduate degree in biological sciences, which is where a lot of med students go, it seems like it's very competitive. There was, some collaboration, but for the most part it was, you're all kind of fighting against each other or competing against each other, and that was not the way it was at the Brown School. And you develop relationships with people because of these small classroom sizes, and you're following these people throughout your 2 years for the most part. Second years get a little bit more specialized, but I mean, you work with them in groups, you see them in events that happen, and it's a really awesome community, and they all want to help. Public health and social work is all about helping people, so you find this common interest, and it's a really good experience, I think, and it was a really good feeling coming from, the 400 people lectures where you don't really know anybody's name. You know most people's name in this program.
Yeah. Clive, do you have anything to add about culture too?
I think as an international student coming here, I was actually wondering how I was going to be able to get to know, to have whether or not I was going to have people like, I'm from Zimbabwe, I used to ask how many Zimbabwean students were there. But after coming here, I realized that that wasn't necessary at all, because I have friends like in class, the classes are so small. And one part that that I found to be useful is, the assignments. most of them, they are group assignments. So you sit down, it's kind of like what you end up doing like in the real world, because, you know, unlike in undergrad where you have most of those individual assignments where, you know, you're working, like she was saying, like in med school, sometimes it tends to be competitive and all those things. But here, they try to teach you like the kind of environment you're going to be in the real world. You don't choose what sort of group you're going to work with. So in the beginning, yeah, obviously there will be, you realize that you're trying to find your way with them, how best you can work with other people. It's a matter of negotiating. But after a couple of weeks, you just realize that, yeah, it just becomes like second nature. They become your friends. It's not only in school. Sometimes even when you are in St. Louis and in the community, you end up just becoming like a family. So it hasn't changed that much. I just feel like probably I'm just home or wherever it is. I don't even feel like I'm an international student or anything. I'm just part of it, and just down to do the business, the classwork and everything. And whenever I need something, like the faculty and everyone, the support is just there. And the other part, like, you know, also the students are really involved, like in the student organization. I've been part of it also. So whenever we need something like some improvements to be done, or something that hasn't been there that needs to be added, we've been able to add our voice. And yeah, we have always had like positive response. So that has been one thing that I really like about the program, and I've really enjoyed it.
Great. And so to kind of build on that, you mentioned St. Louis, and I heard this a couple of times. So I want to talk about St. Louis too, because we're having folks that are coming from all over the place, whether from different parts of the U.S. or different parts of the globe. So what does the city have to offer you as a student, and now as like a budding professional in social work and public health?
St. Louis, as an individual, has so many events and so many opportunities to just like visit, like Forest Park. It's literally walking distance from the campus. During the summer, has all sorts of free events. You can go see a movie in the park. You can go see Shakespeare in the park. They have events at the art museum. You have a free zoo. Like, it's insane the amount of stuff that was there. And like, I'm from California. There's a ton of stuff you can do there, but everything is done as a community here in St. Louis. Like, you would have hundreds of people going to like movie in the park, and it's on this huge like screen that they like blow up, and it's just so cool. And it's like warm because it's in the summer, and everyone's like having a good time watching. I think Titanic was one of the ones that I saw this past summer. It's really cool. And there's they have a lot of microbreweries here, so if you're interested in that, like, it's a really cool community. And I think that also translates into professional too. Sometimes when I'm out, I'll see people that I went to my MPH with or were in the MSW with me, and they'll be talking about what they did, and they're kind of working in tandem with, you know, faculty at WashU, and you can jump in on projects pretty easily. Everybody wants to collaborate together because we want to build up the city, and it's kind of an interesting aspect of St. Louis. Not all cities are like that, especially coming from LA where it's huge and just you would have to break it up into blocks. It's a really interesting community. And I mean, from my practicum, I was able to get a job. And so, I mean, it follows along the line. Like, the community, they move with you and they want to build you up together. So it's been really awesome the like 4 years I've been here, because I've really got to experience the city as a whole and see all of the moving parts with WashU, interacting with the city. It's really cool. I really enjoyed it, and I really like it.
Yeah, I think it's like a medium-sized city for the Midwest. I don't know, but it's like, it feels manageable, like physically easy to get around, affordable, free stuff, which is always striking to me, like how many free festivals, music things,
Yeah.
events, like the movie on Art Hill thing I love. Botanical Gardens also, like in the summer, has a music thing for free. So there's like, as a student especially, you're like, yay, free things. But just living here is very nice and easy to get around. I think also connected to the professional side of that, it feels a little easier to network, to learn about agencies. There are a lot of nonprofit agencies in the area and institutions that would hire public health, social work folks. I volunteered a couple organizations, and it was like relatively easy to start volunteering or learn about those, become more involved if I wanted to, and then that can lead to jobs, practicum, things like that. So it just feels a little more like personal and easier and less red tape sometimes.
St. Louis definitely feels like it is a medium-sized city, but I dare you to try to go out and not run into someone you know. So it's actually a really nice thing about St. Louis is that like if you meet someone who's in the field that you are interested in, there is a really high chance that they know someone that you know, or they can help you, like find a practicum in a certain place. And those connections can really help you make a big difference and really like make your mark in a city, especially if you haven't been here before. And there's just it just feels like, in some ways, it still feels like kind of like a small town charm. And there's a lot of like local businesses to support. And I really enjoy just like seeing the really quirky and exciting parts about St. Louis.
I think when I have to talk about, I think my decision coming to St. Louis also, like I had a couple of schools which were in the Northeast, and one of the things that I actually looked at was the cost of living, housing and everything, how much it was going to cost me. And on that part, just St. Louis has an advantage, like in comparison to most schools, like how much you have to pay. And even the transportation to come to school, basically the community is really around. And the other thing that I ended up I realized after coming here is the kinds of organizations that we have, like coming from a clinical background. WashU Med School is huge, and we have hospitals, there are like tons of research that's happening there, clinical research and a whole lot of things. So in terms of opportunities, like I've seen some friends, because that's the other thing, like in class you have friends, some of them who are interested even in business, who are going to do a dual degree in business. Some will be going to med school. I went to med school, I want to go into residency. That's how diverse the class is, and there are opportunities for everyone. And most of those people are actually going to be doing their practicum, or they're already doing their practicum in St. Louis. That tells you what sort of opportunities are available, like locally, and that's a really positive, like for the community here.
Great, thank you all. So I know we've got quite a few questions that have come in during this live session, so I want to make sure that we get to those, and then we can kind of wrap up with some final thoughts. So we're going to go ahead and move to your questions. First, I want to address a couple that came in before the session started, and they're both related to financial aid and kind of dealing with the financial stresses that may or may not affect you while you're at the Brown School and getting your graduate degree. So the two questions were, what financial aid options are there? And I can talk to those a little bit first. First of all students who are admitted will receive some form of merit-based scholarship. So as long as you submit your best application, we will look at that and use a very holistic review process to see, where we feel you are most eligible as far as merit-based scholarship goes. There are also need-based scholarships available. There are fellowship opportunities, which we post on our Brown School Admitted Students Resource page all the time, so check there. There are also, part-time job opportunities, research assistantships, and if you have questions about those before coming into the program, we'd be happy to connect you with some resources. And then maybe if one of you want to talk about, kind of how you're dealing with that piece of it and how you're navigating that and how that might have affected your decision to come to the Brown School.
One thing that I didn't really consider is the prospect of external scholarships. So there's a lot of like law firms and random organizations that you wouldn't expect that actually have scholarships that you can apply for, which is really great. You get some extra support. And I think also it's worth noting that the cost of living in St. Louis is a lot lower than a lot of schools in the Northeast or on the West Coast. So having the, like a less rent and less like money for like everyday things actually can help a lot when you're thinking about how to save more for tuition.
And we have a really great financial aid office that is solely dedicated to MSW and MPH students, and they are happy to connect with you and talk about options and lay out an entire framework for like what it's going to look like for you, cost of living, tuition, and all of those things combined. So if you would like some more information about that, please feel free to reach out to our office. Now we'll move on to questions that were submitted during the session. So first, this is for our MSW students, so Bridget and Allie. What advice would you give about choosing your first field education opportunity?
I mean, I feel like I a little bit said that earlier, but I would do the backtrack thing. Like I would think about where you want to go and what you're missing from your experience. That was probably like the best thing. I know it's a little weird and maybe not everyone needs to like flood career services, but I did enjoy talking with them specifically, but you could probably do the same thing with field ed.
I actually completely agree with what Bridget said. All of my professional experience have been in the school setting, and that was my foundation practicum. And I remember this was actually my second practicum, but I decided to work at Big Brothers Big Sisters and kind of see what it's like in a nonprofit lens. I mean, I love working in schools, but I thought it'd be really great to kind of see if this would also be a good place to a good fit for me. And I think it's really good because the practicum experience is kind of a time for you to try it out and see if you're compatible, if you enjoy the work. So I thought it was really awesome to be able to have that experience before I chose my ultimate career path.
Great, thank you both. So the next one, perfect segue for our MPH student and alum. For the EPI Practicum, will you complete a practicum that focuses on EPI or bio or both? And both of you can kind of speak to this.
Actually, so the MSW have a slightly different practicum process than we did, or at least when I was at the Brown School. So I didn't do the EPI Biostats practicum. I did it for the policy and administration one,
Right.
which I switched into. So maybe you can answer that better than I can.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think for EPI biostatistics, you can't really separate the two. When you look at EPI biostatistics, you're going to realize that the two are linked, especially when you're looking at the clinical aspect or the kind of research you're going to be doing. So in as much as you can go into research, you're going to be talking about communities, talking about epidemiology and everything. But when you start talking about data analysis, you're already talking about biostatistics. So wherever you're going to go, like especially if it's to do with research, which is most of which is what most students end up doing, like in the practicum, most of the organizations, like they want people to come to do like data collection, data analysis, data management, and all those things. So you're kind of like having both aspects of it, and like there's a list of objectives. When you really look at it, it just combines both of them. Yeah, when you go into the field, probably they might have one or the other, but you realize that it's difficult to separate the two because you're basically going to be applying like the skill sets, like whichever you are doing. So I would say probably both.
That's great. Great. The next question. So this can be for anyone, maybe one or two of you. Talk about what ultimately made you choose the Brown School as you were navigating multiple admissions offers, if you were.
So because I lived in California, I wanted to, it was here and Chicago were the two schools that I had gotten accepted in and I was looking at to come. And so I wanted to make sure I planned they're close to each other, so I wanted to plan the trip together so I couldn't, not have to have two flights out to the Midwest. And WashU was so on top of it. They were responding back to me really quickly. I couldn't come during the visitors day that they had, but they were like, hey, we'll take a student, they can show you around the campus, they'll show you where your classes will be and maybe introduce you to some faculty. And I got no responses from Chicago. I was calling them, emailing them, trying to make it work. And it was almost like they were kind of oh, we don't have time. And so honestly, that is what did it. I mean, like you said, they give out a lot of scholarships, so you know that they're invested in their students more so than other schools that don't do that. But just that personal touch really did. It was like, you know what? I'm not going to want to deal with this halfway down the line when I have to find a job or when I need a class that I want to try and get a hold of you people when you're not going to, when you, it seems like you don't care. So that level of caring for a school that is so highly ranked was unexpected and what ultimately led me coming here. So.
I think for myself, I consider myself, I almost gave up in applying because as an international student, there's a lot of requirements that you have to meet. I did my medical degree in Cuba, which was in Spanish, and I had to meet the English requirements, even though in Zimbabwe official language is English. So the transcripts also, they have to be evaluated and come, and I think that took a long time. So all my paperwork, in as much as I applied by the December 15 deadline, my paperwork only, like the transcripts and everything, came like March. So there were a couple of schools where I would send an email and say, in as much as after getting admitted, I was admitted in most, like all the schools I applied to, like the 6 schools which were in the top 10. So I would send an email. Sometimes I would just realize that probably it's a student who is responding and telling me that someone in the admissions is going to respond and it will take 2 or 3 days. But at the Brown School, I ended up receiving like an email, like assistant admissions director, Laura Pierre, and we were communicating every day. I would receive like 3 or 4 emails. She was really up to it, whatever it is that I needed. So in as much as I almost gave up in like hope about applying, saying probably I'll try another year because of the papers, of the paperwork, I ended up, feeling like I didn't lose any time. Everything was just there, and whatever information I needed, be it financial aid, be it scholarships and everything, external, whatever it is that I needed, like in terms of, I even didn't apply like on the deadline for the research fellowship, and she found a research fellowship for me. I applied like end of March, I did get it. So coming to the Brown School, at the end of the day, I ended up having more opportunities than I would have had at other schools where I'm still sending emails and it takes time. Like, they're so big, but here at the Brown School, like there's that contact, like even with the applicants. So it was just one-to-one conversations that we used to have, be it phone calls or emails, follow-up conversations, and everything was just like timely. And I think it did, that's what, one of the things that actually did the trick for me to actually choose and say I'll be going to the Brown School, because I just imagined that if they were that organized, I was going to get like an opportunity. Like I would always have someone listening to me whenever I have problems, and I really enjoyed it. I liked that part.
Great, thank you. So the next one, what job opportunities are available on campus? Bridget or Allie want to speak to that?
Yeah, I can. Okay, so in the Brown School, there are some student jobs, including student ambassador, which I do. You could also work for the library, the service center, which is like a mail room area. There's an IT desk. There's like several within the Brown School jobs that you should look for, and I'll explain that in a second. And then there's also some across campus jobs. So some of our students work in residential life, the Gephardt Center, which is like a civic engagement center. I think our counseling and student health center, probably some others I'm missing. There's like a decent amount of things that are both like the graduate research fellowships, which are in the Brown School, so like more research assistant or teaching assistant, as well as just like kind of part-time jobs across campus. Some of our students are like TAs for undergrad classes. So some of those jobs that are Brown School specific and even across campus you could find once you are an admitted student and have access to the portal where we actually look for practicum. That's called Simplicity. You can look for jobs on there. You can also look for jobs on some of the like university-wide human resources page and start asking, if you do want part-time jobs, connect with people, talk to our career services in-house, talk to admissions staff, like put yourself out there to be like looking for a job, want to find these things, who do I connect with, where do I look? Those are my suggestions.
Great.
Thoughts on that?
Awesome.
great.
And then, so we have one last question. What is the one thing you wish you knew about the Brown School before you arrived?
I think that I wish I knew how supportive it would be and how wonderful the community would be, because it would have saved me a lot of nerves the summer before and on my road trip to St. Louis. But just trusting in the fact that not only will I be getting a lot of knowledge from the Brown School and a lot of experience, but also a lot of support in finding out who I am as a professional.
I think that's a great place to wrap it up. That was beautiful. So thank you all so much. So thank you all for those of you who tuned in live to watch. If you do have questions, we're going to leave some contact information at the end. I do want to remind everyone who has been admitted to the Brown School that we are hosting Admitted Students Weekend on April 6th and 7th. So please join us for that. And then if you have any questions, you can reach out to the Brown School Office of Admissions at Brown School or Brown Admissions at worcester.edu, or my personal contact information, which we'll post momentarily. Thanks again. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.